Marcus Chen sat on the cold metal floor near the entrance of the Stellar Winds gaming house. His clothes were dirty and torn. His shoes had holes in them. His stomach made angry sounds because he had not eaten in 2 days. People walked past him without looking. Some dropped small coins into his cup, but most ignored him completely. The gaming house was the biggest entertainment center on Zephyria Station. Aliens from dozens of different worlds came here to play games, drink, and show off their wealth. The lights were bright and colorful. Music played from hidden speakers. The smell of exotic foods drifted through the air, making Marcus's hunger worse. He watched the aliens walk in and out. There were tall blue centaurians with 4 arms, short green pixelites with large eyes, furry bearlings that looked like walking teddy bears but were actually master engineers, and many others that Marcus could not even name. They all had one thing in common. They were rich, well-fed, and looked at humans like they were stupid animals. Marcus had been stuck on this station for 4 months. His transport ship had left without him after he fell asleep in a maintenance tunnel. He had spent his last credits trying to find another way home. Now he was broke, hungry, and forgotten. Every day he begged for enough money to buy one small meal. Every night he slept in whatever corner the station security would let him use. The gaming house doors opened with a soft whoosh. Out walked the most arrogant alien Marcus had ever seen. It was a Vorthak named Kethamor. The creature stood 8 feet tall with purple skin that seemed to glow in the station lights. Its head was large and round with no hair. 4 black eyes looked in different directions at the same time. It wore expensive robes made of silver fabric that moved like liquid metal. Kethamor had been winning games in the Stellar Winds for weeks. He played something called quantum chess, which was supposed to be the hardest strategy game in the galaxy. Marcus had watched him play through the windows. The alien never lost, not even once. Other players would challenge him with confidence and leave looking shocked and embarrassed. The Vorthak noticed Marcus sitting by the door. All 4 of its eyes turned to look at him. A sound came from its throat that might have been laughter, but it sounded more like a machine breaking. "What do we have here?" Kethamor said in perfect standard galactic. His voice was deep and smooth, but there was something mean in it. "A human beggar." How very sad. Marcus looked up but said nothing. He had learned that talking back to rich aliens usually made things worse for him. "I have heard that humans think they are clever," Kethamor continued, "though I have seen no proof of this claim. Tell me, little human, do you know how to play any games? Or do your people only know how to beg and serve others?" A few other aliens had stopped to watch. They whispered to each other and pointed at Marcus. Some seemed amused. Others looked uncomfortable. None of them tried to help. "I can play some games," Marcus said quietly. His voice was rough from not using it much. "Ah, it speaks." Kethamor clapped his hands together. The sound was sharp and loud. "How wonderful. Perhaps you would like to play quantum chess with me. I am told it requires great intelligence. Much more than most species possess." Marcus knew this was a trap. Rich aliens sometimes like to embarrass poor humans for fun, but he also knew he needed food badly. His vision was getting blurry from hunger. His hands shook when he tried to pick up coins. "He might not survive another week like this. What would we play for?" Marcus asked. Kethamor's eyes seemed to light up with excitement. "Excellent question. If by some miracle you actually win, I will give you 1,000 credits. Enough for food and passage to any human world you choose. But when you lose, you will become my personal servant for 1 full cycle. You will clean my quarters, carry my belongings, and do whatever tasks I require." The watching aliens gasped. A full cycle was almost a year in standard time. That was a harsh punishment for losing a game. But 1,000 credits was more money than Marcus had seen in months. "I don't know how to play quantum chess," Marcus admitted. "No problem at all," Kethamor said with fake cheerfulness. "I will teach you the rules as we play. Consider it part of my generosity. Though I should warn you, most beings require years of study to become even slightly competent at this game. The quantum mechanics alone are beyond the understanding of primitive minds." More aliens gathered around them now. Word was spreading through the gaming house that the famous Kethamor was about to play against a human beggar. People pressed against the windows to get a better look. Some held recording devices to capture what they expected to be a very short and embarrassing game. Marcus stood up slowly. His legs were weak and his head felt light. But something inside him had awakened when Kethamor mentioned quantum mechanics, something that had been sleeping for a long time. "I accept your challenge," Marcus said. The crowd made excited noises. A few aliens laughed. One Centaurian shook its forehead sadly, as if watching someone walk toward certain doom. Kethmore smiled, showing rows of sharp white teeth. Splendid. Let us go inside and begin your education. I promise to make your defeat as instructive as possible. They walked into the gaming house together. The alien moved with confidence and grace. Marcus shuffled behind him, still weak from hunger but feeling more awake than he had in months. The other patrons stared at them as they passed. Some called out bets on how quickly the human would lose. The main gaming floor was huge and filled with different types of game tables. There were card games using psychic energy, puzzle boxes that existed in 7 dimensions, and combat simulations that looked completely real. But the most impressive area was the quantum chess section in the center of the room. Kethmore led Marcus to his usual table. It was the best spot in the house with a clear view of the entire floor. The alien had obviously paid extra for this privilege. He gestured for Marcus to sit in the chair across from him. Before we begin, Kethmore announced loudly, making sure everyone could hear, I want all witnesses to understand the terms of our agreement. This human has agreed to become my servant when he loses. In the unlikely event that he wins, I will provide him with 1,000 credits. The crowd murmured with excitement. This was better entertainment than most of the paid shows on the station. Kethmore touched a control panel on the table. The air above the playing surface shimmered and changed. Slowly, a complex holographic game board appeared. It had multiple levels that seemed to exist in different dimensions. Pieces moved and shifted even when no one was controlling them. The whole thing hurt to look at for too long. This is quantum chess, Kethmore explained, his voice now taking on the tone of a teacher talking to a very slow student. The pieces exist in multiple probability states until observed. The board itself changes based on the choices made by both players. Victory requires understanding not just strategy, but advanced mathematics, quantum theory, and dimensional physics. Marcus stared at the board. The patterns were familiar somehow. The mathematical relationships reminded him of something from long ago. Something important that he had tried very hard to forget. Are you ready to begin your humiliation, little human? Kethmore asked. Marcus looked up at the alien's confident face. For the first time in months, he almost smiled. Yes, he said. I'm ready. The gaming house had never been so crowded. Word about the match spread through Zephyria Station faster than a computer virus. Aliens came running from other levels just to see the human beggar who was brave enough or stupid enough to challenge Kethmore. The betting windows were doing more business than they had seen all month. Marcus sat in his chair and tried to ignore the noise around him. Hundreds of aliens pressed close to the table, talking in dozens of different languages. Some laughed at him. Others took pictures. A few made sad sounds like they were watching someone about to die. Quite a crowd you have drawn, Kethmore said, clearly enjoying the attention. I hope you are ready for them to witness your defeat. It will be discussed across the galaxy for years to come. A tall Centaurian official approached their table. She had blue skin and wore the uniform of a gaming house referee. Her forearms moved in practiced patterns as she set up recording equipment and verified the betting pools. Gentlemen, she said in a formal voice, I am required to confirm the terms of this match for the official record. Kethmore of House Veltar, you agree to pay 1,000 standard credits if you lose this game? I do, Kethmore replied with confidence. And Marcus Chen of Earth, you agree to serve as personal attendant to Kethmore for 1 full cycle if you lose? Marcus nodded. I agree. The referee made notes on her datapad. The game will be standard quantum chess with full dimensional rules. No outside assistance is permitted. No time limits will be enforced. The match ends when one player achieves quantum checkmate or surrenders. Are both players ready? More than ready, Kethmore said. He cracked his knuckles, which made a sound like breaking glass. Marcus said nothing. He was studying the holographic board that floated between them. The pieces were beautiful and strange. Each one existed in several places at once until someone looked directly at it. Then it would collapse into a single position before spreading out again. The board itself had 7 levels, each one representing a different dimensional plane. Since you are unfamiliar with the game, Kethmore said in a loud voice so everyone could hear, allow me to explain the basic rules. Each piece can exist in multiple quantum states. When you move a piece, you are actually moving probability clouds. The board responds to these changes by shifting its own dimensional structure. He gestured at the floating pieces. The quantum pawns can move forward in any dimension, but only attack diagonally across probability states. The dimensional rooks move in straight lines through collapsed space. The bishops control quantum uncertainty along diagonal paths. The knights move in L-shaped jumps through folded dimensions. Marcus nodded like he was trying to understand. Inside his head, though, the mathematics were already becoming clear. Each piece represented a different type of quantum function. The board was basically a three-dimensional probability matrix with seven-dimensional extensions. It was complex but not impossible to understand. The queens are the most powerful pieces, Kethmore continued. They can move in any direction through any dimensional state. And the kings, of course, must be protected at all costs. But here is the interesting part. Checkmate in quantum chess means trapping the enemy king in all possible quantum states simultaneously. The crowd listened carefully. Most of them had never seen quantum chess explained so clearly. Kethmore was obviously showing off his knowledge. "Do you have any questions before we begin?" the alien asked. "Just one," Marcus said quietly. "When a piece exists in multiple states, how do you determine which state becomes real when you attack?" Kethmore's eyes brightened with surprise. It was actually a very good question. The quantum wave function collapses based on the observer effect, combined with the probability mathematics of the attacking piece. The strongest probability becomes reality. Marcus nodded again. That made perfect sense from a physics standpoint. The game was basically quantum mechanics with rules attached. "I think I understand," Marcus said. Several aliens in the crowd laughed. A pixelite near the front called out, "No one understands quantum chess after 5 minutes of explanation. This human is delusional." Kethmore raised his hand for silence. "We shall see what he understands when the game begins. I will even give him the advantage of making the first move." The referee activated the official recording systems. "Let the match begin," she announced. Marcus looked at the board for a long moment. The quantum pawns flickered in and out of existence in front of his pieces. Each one represented dozens of possible moves. Most beginners found this overwhelming and confusing, but to Marcus it looked like a beautiful mathematical equation waiting to be solved. He reached out and touched one of his quantum pawns. The piece felt warm and seemed to vibrate slightly. As his finger made contact, several possible moves appeared as glowing lines on the board. He chose a simple opening move, advancing the pawn 2 spaces forward. The crowd was quiet now. Everyone wanted to see how quickly Kethmore would destroy this foolish human. The alien made his responding move without even thinking. He advanced his own pawn and smiled confidently. A classic opening. Very predictable. Marcus made his second move, bringing out one of his dimensional knights. The piece jumped through folded space and appeared on a square that seemed to exist in 3 different dimensions at once. Kethmore paused. The knight's position was actually quite good. It controlled several important quantum pathways and threatened multiple pieces simultaneously. Maybe the human had just been lucky. The alien made his next move more carefully. He brought out one of his bishops to control a diagonal probability line. Marcus responded by moving his queen to a position that most observers thought looked random. But Kethmore stared at the board for almost a minute before making his next move. The queen's position was mathematically elegant. It created quantum interference patterns that limited several of his own pieces. The game continued. With each move, Marcus seemed to understand the board better. His pieces worked together in ways that created complex probability webs. Kethmore found himself having to think longer before each decision. The crowd began to whisper. This was not what they had expected to see. The human was not being crushed immediately. In fact, he seemed to be keeping up with the famous Kethmore. Interesting strategy. 5 hours had passed since the game began. The crowd around the table had grown so large that station security had to set up barriers to keep people from pressing too close. Aliens who had come to watch a quick humiliation now found themselves witnessing something they had never seen before. Kethmore was losing, not quickly or obviously, but anyone who understood quantum chess could see the truth. The human beggar was slowly but steadily gaining control of the board. His pieces worked together like parts of a perfect machine. Every move seemed to create new possibilities while limiting his opponent's options. The alien's purple skin had turned darker with stress. Sweat dripped from his large head onto the table. His 4 eyes moved constantly, searching for solutions that seemed to disappear the moment he found them. For the first time in his long career, Kethmore was truly struggling. Marcus, on the other hand, looked better than he had in months. The hunger and weakness that had plagued him were gone. His hands no longer shook. His eyes were bright and focused. He moved his pieces with increasing confidence, as if he was remembering something important that had been buried deep inside his mind. "Your technique is quite unusual," Kethmore said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Where did you learn to play like this?" "I'm just following the mathematics," Marcus replied. "Each move creates probability waves that affect the entire board. If you map those waves correctly, the best moves become obvious." The watching aliens made surprised sounds. Mathematics? Most players relied on intuition and pattern recognition. Using pure mathematics to play quantum chess was theoretically possible, but incredibly difficult. It required understanding complex equations in real time while the board constantly changed. An elderly pixelite professor pushed through the crowd to get a better look. She had studied quantum chess theory for decades and recognized what she was seeing. "Impossible," she whispered. "He's calculating the wave functions manually." No one can do that without computer assistance, but Marcus was doing exactly that. Each time Kethmore moved a piece, Marcus would stare at the board for a few moments, his eyes tracking invisible mathematical relationships. Then he would make his response move with complete certainty. No hesitation, no second-guessing. The game had reached its middle stage. This was where Kethmore usually dominated his opponents. The dimensional complexity became overwhelming for most players, and they started making mistakes that he could exploit. But Marcus seemed to thrive on the increased complexity. His moves became even more precise and creative. "Check," Marcus said quietly. The word sent shock waves through the crowd. Kethmore's king was trapped in a quantum state that threatened checkmate across 3 different dimensional planes. The alien stared at the board in disbelief. He had not seen the attack coming at all. "Clever," Kethmore admitted grudgingly, "but not insurmountable." The alien spent 20 minutes studying his options before finding a way to escape the check. But his solution required sacrificing his dimensional rook, one of his most powerful pieces. The crowd murmured with excitement. Many had never seen Kethmore lose a major piece before. Marcus captured the rook without hesitation. As the piece dissolved into quantum static, he immediately launched a new attack on the opposite side of the board. His remaining pieces flowed across the dimensional planes like water, finding the fastest path downhill. "How is he doing this?" a Centaurian engineer whispered to his companion. "I've been playing quantum chess for 50 years and I can barely follow his strategy." "Look at his eyes," replied a barreling mathematician. "He's not guessing. He's calculating. Every single probability, every quantum interaction. It's like watching a living computer." Kethmore was beginning to panic. This was not supposed to happen. Vorthak were the supreme intellects of the galaxy. They had created quantum chess specifically because no other species could master it. Yet this ragged human was outplaying him using pure mathematical analysis. The alien tried to regain control by launching a desperate attack on Marcus's queen. But the human had anticipated this move 3 turns earlier. His queen danced away from danger while his other pieces closed in around Kethmore's king like a slowly tightening net. "Check again," Marcus announced. This time the attack was even more sophisticated. Kethmore's king was threatened simultaneously in 4 different quantum states. The alien's hands trembled as he searched for an escape route. The mathematics required to solve this position were staggering. Even with his enhanced Vorthak brain, he needed almost an hour to find a defensive move. The crowd had grown quiet. Everyone could sense that something historic was happening. The greatest quantum chess player in known space was being systematically destroyed by a human who claimed to have learned the rules only hours earlier. Marcus continued his attack without mercy. Each move built upon the previous ones, creating mathematical patterns of incredible beauty and complexity. His pieces seemed to move with their own intelligence, flowing around Kethmore's defenses like they weren't even there. The alien was now taking over an hour between moves. His breathing was heavy and labored. His eyes darted frantically across the board, searching for solutions that no longer existed. He had lost 2 more major pieces and most of his quantum pawns. His king was trapped in an increasingly small area of safe positions. "This is impossible," Kethmore muttered to himself. "Humans don't have this kind of intellectual capacity. Their brains are too primitive." But the evidence was right in front of him. This human was not only matching his abilities but exceeding them. Every defensive strategy that Kethmore tried was anticipated and countered. Every attack he launched was absorbed and turned against him. A group of Vorthak scientists had arrived to watch the end of the game. They stood in stunned silence as they witnessed one of their own species being defeated by a being they considered intellectually inferior. Some took detailed recordings, knowing that their colleagues would never believe what had happened without proof. "Final check," Marcus said calmly. The position was devastating. Kethmore's king was trapped in a quantum maze with no possible escape routes. Every move the alien could make would result in immediate checkmate. The mathematical certainty of defeat was absolute and undeniable. Kethmore stared at the board for a long time. His four eyes moved slowly across every piece, every position, every probability state. He ran calculations in his head until his brain hurt. But no matter how he analyzed the position, the result was always the same. He was finished. The gaming house was completely silent. Hundreds of aliens held their breath, waiting for the inevitable surrender. This was a moment that would be remembered and discussed for generations. The day a human beggar defeated the greatest quantum chess master in the galaxy. Kethmore looked up at Marcus with a mixture of respect and confusion. "Before I concede defeat," he said slowly, "I must ask you something. You claim to have learned this game only today. That is clearly impossible. Who are you, really?" Marcus met the alien's gaze steadily. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. A memory of a different life. A reminder of who he used to be before everything went wrong. "I'm just someone who understands mathematics," he said quietly. But even as he spoke, Marcus knew that wasn't the whole truth. The game had awakened something inside him that had been sleeping for too long. Skills and knowledge that he had tried to forget were flooding back into his consciousness. The hunger and desperation of the past months were fading, replaced by the clear, sharp thinking that had once made him one of the most respected minds in human space. "Impossible," Kethmore whispered. "No being can calculate quantum probability matrices that quickly without computer assistance. Not even the Vorthak." "Mathematics is mathematics," Marcus replied. "It doesn't matter what species you are. The equations work the same way for everyone." The alien shook his head in bewilderment. Everything he had been taught about human intellectual capacity was wrong. This beggar sitting across from him had just demonstrated mathematical abilities that surpassed his own. It challenged everything the Vorthak believed about their place in the galaxy. "I concede the game," Kethmore said formally. "You have achieved quantum checkmate." The crowd erupted in shocked cheers and amazed chatter. Aliens who had bet against the humans suddenly realized they had lost small fortunes. Others who had supported him out of pity found themselves much richer. But most were simply stunned by what they had witnessed. Marcus leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. The game was over, but something much more important had begun. For the first time in months, he remembered who he really was. The gaming house was in chaos. Aliens pushed and shoved to get closer to the table where the impossible had just happened. Security guards struggled to maintain order as news of the match spread throughout Zephyria Station. The betting computers had crashed from too many people trying to collect their winnings at once. Marcus sat quietly in his chair, ignoring the noise around him. The game was over, but his mind was still racing with calculations and possibilities. For the first time in months, he felt truly awake. The fog of depression and self-doubt that had clouded his thoughts was lifting, replaced by the sharp clarity he remembered from his previous life. Kethmore remained seated across from him, staring at the now empty holographic board space. The alien's four eyes blinked slowly as he tried to understand what had just occurred. Everything he knew about human intelligence had been proven wrong in the span of a few hours. "That was extraordinary," said a voice behind them. Marcus turned to see an elderly pixelite female approaching their table. She wore the robes of a university professor and carried herself with the dignity of someone used to being listened to. "I am Dr. Zilnara from the Institute of Advanced Game Theory. I have studied quantum chess for over 60 years, and I have never seen anything like that performance." She gestured at the space where the board had been. "The way you calculated those probability matrices in real time was incredible. Most players need computer assistance to handle even basic quantum interactions. You were doing advanced wave function analysis faster than our best artificial intelligences." Marcus nodded politely but said nothing. He wasn't ready to explain himself yet. The memories were still coming back piece by piece like a jigsaw puzzle slowly revealing its picture. "Where did you study mathematics?" Dr. Zilnara asked. "Which university taught you quantum theory?" It was a long time ago, Marcus replied quietly. A Centaurian reporter pushed through the crowd with a recording device. Sir, can you comment on your victory? How does it feel to defeat the great Kethmore? What message does this send to humans throughout the galaxy? Marcus stood up from his chair. He was taller than most people had noticed while he was sitting down. Despite his ragged clothes and thin frame, there was something dignified about the way he carried himself now, something that commanded respect. I need some air, he said simply and walked toward the exit. But the crowd wouldn't let him leave easily. Aliens pressed close, asking questions, taking pictures, and demanding explanations. Some wanted to challenge him to games. Others offered him jobs or sponsorship deals. A few just wanted to touch him, as if his mathematical abilities might be contagious. Kethmore watched the chaos with growing amazement. This human had gone from ignored beggar to galactic celebrity in the space of one afternoon. But there was still something mysterious about him, something that didn't add up. The alien stood and followed Marcus toward the exit. Wait, he called out. You haven't collected your winnings yet. Marcus stopped and turned around. The money. I had almost forgotten. Kethmore pulled out a credit chip worth exactly 1,000 standard credits. It was more money than Marcus had seen in years. A bargain is a bargain, the alien said formally. You won fairly even if I don't understand how. Marcus took the chip but didn't look at it. Thank you. Before you go, Kethmore said, I must know. That wasn't beginner's luck. That wasn't even advanced skill. What you did in there required mathematical training that takes decades to develop. No one learns to calculate quantum probability matrices by watching through a window. For a moment, Marcus said nothing. Then slowly, he began to speak. My name is Dr. Marcus Chen. I used to be a professor of theoretical physics at Luna University. I specialized in quantum computing and multidimensional mathematics. I published over 200 papers on quantum mechanics and probability theory. I was considered one of the leading experts in my field. The crowd around them grew quiet. Dr. Zilnara gasped. Marcus Chen? The Marcus Chen? You wrote the foundational equations for quantum probability mapping. Your work has required reading in advanced mathematics programs across the galaxy. Marcus nodded sadly. That was before the accident. What accident? Someone in the crowd asked. Marcus closed his eyes, remembering. 3 years ago, I was working on a project to create the first truly quantum computer. Something that could exist in multiple calculation states simultaneously. The mathematics were incredibly complex. One small error in the probability equations could cause catastrophic quantum cascade failures. His voice became quieter. I made that error. The computer exploded during testing, destroying the entire laboratory. Worse, the quantum cascade spread beyond the lab. It affected a nearby residential area. 57 people were hospitalized with quantum radiation poisoning. 6 of them died. The crowd was completely silent now. Even the background noise of the gaming house seemed to fade away. It was my fault, Marcus continued. My equations, my error, my responsibility. I resigned from the university immediately. I couldn't face teaching anymore, knowing that my mistakes could kill people. I left Luna and started wandering the galaxy, trying to forget what I had done. The drinking started first, then the gambling. Eventually, I lost everything and ended up here begging for food. Dr. Zilnara stepped forward. But Dr. Chen, your work has helped millions of people. Quantum computers based on your theories are used in hospitals across human space. Your equations have saved far more lives than were lost in that accident. Tell that to the families of the 6 people who died, Marcus replied bitterly. Kethmore was staring at him with new understanding. So that's how you calculated the wave function so quickly. You weren't learning quantum chess. You were applying knowledge you already had. The game is based on the same mathematical principles as quantum computing. More or less, Marcus agreed. Once I realized that the pieces were basically quantum function representations, and the board was a probability matrix, the rest became straightforward mathematics. I've been working with these equations for most of my adult life. A young Bearling engineer pushed forward. Dr. Chen, I used your textbook to design the quantum navigation systems on my ship. Your work is brilliant. Your probability mapping saved my daughter's life, added a Centaurian doctor. The quantum medical scanners couldn't work without your equations. More aliens began speaking up, sharing stories of how Marcus's mathematical work had helped them or their families. The man who had been ignored as a worthless beggar just hours before was hearing testimonials about how his Life's work had made the galaxy a better place. Marcus listened to their stories with growing amazement. He had spent 3 years believing that his greatest achievement was also his greatest failure. But these people were telling him about all the good his work had accomplished. All the lives it had saved and improved. "I don't understand," he said slowly. "After the accident, everyone called me a failure. The media blamed me for the deaths. My colleagues avoided me. I thought my career was over." Dr. Zilnara shook her head sadly. "That's because the media only reported the accident, not the aftermath. Dr. Chen, your work didn't end when you left Luna University. Other scientists continued your research. They fixed the error in your equations and perfected the quantum computer design. The technology you created is now used throughout human space and beyond." She pulled out a datapad and showed him a list of recent scientific papers. "Look at this. Quantum medical scanners, faster-than-light communication arrays, advanced probability calculators, zero-point energy generators, all of them based on your original work. All of them helping people every day." Marcus stared at the list with tears in his eyes. He had never imagined that his work had continued after he left. He had assumed that the accident had destroyed everything he had tried to accomplish. "The deaths were a tragedy," Dr. Zilnara continued gently, "but they weren't the end of your story. They were the beginning of something much bigger. Your equations have literally changed the galaxy." For the first time in 3 years, Marcus felt something other than guilt and self-hatred. He felt hope. Kethmore stepped forward. "Dr. Chen, I owe you an apology. I challenged you tonight because I thought humans were intellectually inferior to my people. You have proven me completely wrong. Your mathematical abilities exceed anything I have ever encountered." The alien paused, looking uncomfortable. "I also want to offer you something beyond our original agreement. I have contacts throughout the galaxy's academic community. If you're ready to return to scientific work, I can help you find a position worthy of your abilities." Marcus looked around at the crowd of aliens who were no longer seeing him as a worthless beggar. They were looking at him with respect, admiration, and hope. For the first time in years, he began to believe that maybe his life wasn't over after all. Maybe it was just beginning again. 2 weeks had passed since the game that changed everything. Marcus stood in the communications center of Zephyria Station, holding a datapad that contained the most important message he had written in 3 years. His hands were steady now. His eyes were clear. The ragged clothes had been replaced with simple but clean garments that Kethmore had insisted on buying for him. The message was addressed to Dr. Sarah Williams, his former research partner at Luna University. The woman who had tried to contact him dozens of times after the accident, only to have her messages ignored or returned unread. The colleague who had never stopped believing in his work, even when he had stopped believing in himself. "Sarah," the message began, "I know you have every right to be angry with me for disappearing without explanation. I know I hurt you and the rest of our team by leaving so suddenly, but I'm ready to come home now if you'll have me." He paused, then continued typing. "I've learned something important during my time away. The accident wasn't the end of our work. It was the beginning of something much bigger. I want to be part of that again if it's not too late." Behind him, Kethmore watched with interest. The alien had become an unlikely friend over the past 2 weeks. Their daily conversations about mathematics and quantum theory had taught both of them things they never expected to learn. "Are you certain about this?" Kethmore asked. "Returning to your old life won't be easy. There will be questions, investigations, people who still blame you for what happened." Marcus nodded. "I'm certain. I spent 3 years running away from my responsibilities. It's time to face them." He finished the message and sent it toward Luna University. Even with faster-than-light communication, it would take several hours to reach its destination. Then he would have to wait for Sarah's reply, assuming she was willing to reply at all. The gaming house had been quieter since their famous match. Word had spread throughout the galaxy about the human who defeated Kethmore at quantum chess. Journalists had come from dozens of worlds to interview Marcus. Scientists wanted to discuss his mathematical theories. Game enthusiasts challenged him to matches that he won with increasing ease. But the most important change was in how other humans were being treated throughout the station. Before the game, humans had been largely ignored or looked down upon by the other species. Now aliens approached them with curiosity and respect. The victory had changed perceptions about human intelligence across multiple worlds. Dr. Zilnara approached them with a data pad in her hands. Dr. Chen, I have wonderful news. The Institute of Advanced Game Theory has formally invited you to become a visiting professor. The salary is excellent, and you would have access to the most advanced quantum computers in this sector of the galaxy. Marcus smiled gratefully. Thank you, Dr. Zilnara. That's very generous, but I think I need to return to Luna first. There are things I need to resolve before I can move forward. She nodded with understanding. Of course, the offer will remain open whenever you're ready. A soft chime indicated that Marcus had received a message. His heart raced as he opened it, hoping it was from Sarah. Instead, it was from an unexpected source, Captain Rodriguez of the merchant vessel Stellar Wanderer. Dr. Chen, the message read, I heard about your situation on Zephyria Station. I'm currently docked here for repairs and would be honored to offer you free passage to Luna. Your work helped design the quantum navigation system on my ship. It's the least I can do to repay that debt. Marcus felt a surge of gratitude. The kindness of strangers never ceased to amaze him. That's very generous, he told Kethmore. But I should probably take commercial transport. I don't want to impose on anyone. Nonsense, the alien replied. Accept the captain's offer. It's not charity, it's respect. Throughout this station, beings whose lives were improved by your work are offering to help you. Let them. As if to prove his point, another message arrived. This time it was from the station administrator, offering Marcus free accommodation until his departure. Then came messages from local restaurants offering free meals, clothing stores offering new garments, and even the quantum computer repair shop offering to fix his old personal data pad. I don't understand this, Marcus said, overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. I'm just one person. I made one mistake that killed 6 people. How can everyone be so forgiving? Kethmore placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Because your mistake was followed by decades of brilliant work that saved thousands of lives. Because you punished yourself far more harshly than anyone else would have. And because everyone makes mistakes. It's what we learn from them that defines us. Another chime announced the arrival of the message Marcus had been waiting for. This one was from Sarah Williams at Luna University. Marcus, it read, I can't believe you're finally reaching out. I've been hoping for this message for 3 years. Of course we want you back. The team has never been the same without you. We've continued your quantum computing research and made some exciting breakthroughs. But we need your expertise to take it to the next level. Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes as he continued reading. The accident was not your fault alone. We all contributed to those equations. We all shared the responsibility. But more importantly, we've all shared in the incredible success that followed. Dr. Chen, your work has revolutionized quantum technology throughout human space. You need to come home and see what you've accomplished. The message included dozens of research papers, medical reports, and engineering specifications, all showing how Marcus's original equations had been developed and improved. The quantum computers now in use were safer, more efficient, and more powerful than anything he had originally imagined. His work had truly changed the galaxy. She wants me to come back, Marcus said quietly. Of course she does, Kethmore replied. You're one of the greatest mathematical minds in the galaxy. Why wouldn't she want you back? That evening, Marcus stood at the observation deck of Zephyria Station, looking out at the stars. Tomorrow he would board Captain Rodriguez's ship and begin the journey back to Luna, back to his old life, but as a different person than the one who had left. Kethmore joined him at the railing. I have a confession to make, the alien said. When I challenged you to that game, I didn't expect to learn anything. I thought I would simply humiliate another inferior species and move on with my life. He paused, looking out at the stars. Instead, you taught me something valuable. Intelligence isn't about which species you belong to, or what advantages you were born with. It's about how you use your mind to solve problems and help others. You've shown me that humans deserve far more respect than my people have given them. Marcus nodded. We all have things to learn about each other. That's what makes the galaxy interesting. I've been thinking about our conversation regarding quantum probability matrices. Kethmore continued. There are several applications of your theories that might interest the Vorthak scientific community. Would you be willing to collaborate on some research papers? A partnership between human and Vorthak mathematicians could produce fascinating results. I'd be honored, Marcus replied. Once I get settled back on Luna, I'll contact you about setting up a research exchange program. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the ships come and go from the station's docking bays. Then Marcus spoke again. "Kethmore, can I ask you something? Why did you help me after the game? You could have just paid the bet and walked away. Instead, you've become my friend and advocate." "Why?" The alien was quiet for a long moment. "Because I realized something during our match. When you were calculating those quantum equations, you weren't trying to defeat me personally. You were solving mathematical problems because you loved the mathematics itself. That's the mark of a true scientist, someone who pursues knowledge for its own sake, not for personal glory." He turned to face Marcus directly. "I spent years winning games and collecting prizes, but I never truly understood what I was playing. You showed me the beauty hidden in those equations. You reminded me why I fell in love with mathematics in the first place." The next morning, Marcus stood at the docking bay where the stellar wanderer was preparing for departure. His belongings fit in a single small bag, everything else he had lost during his years of wandering. But he was taking something more valuable with him: hope for the future. Captain Rodriguez greeted him warmly. "Dr. Chen, it's an honor to have you aboard. My navigation officer is very excited to meet you. She wrote her thesis on your quantum probability theories." As the ship prepared to leave Zephyria Station, Marcus took one last look at the gaming house where everything had changed. The play for food challenge that was meant to humiliate him had instead reminded him of who he really was. He thought about the 6 people who had died in his laboratory accident. For 3 years he had carried their deaths as a burden of guilt and shame. But now he understood something different. The best way to honor their memory was not to hide from his abilities, but to use them to help others. His quantum theories were saving lives every day throughout the galaxy. His equations were powering the computers that guided ships safely through space, healing the sick and advancing human knowledge. The accident had been a tragedy, but it hadn't been the end of his story.